You need to click the video again. What happened? What's going on? Welcome to the show. I don't know what to do. Oh God, this is not like... We got there in the end. Good evening and welcome to the show. Guys, it feels like we've been away for a while. As if it was a bit of rust. Just let us get through it. Eh? So it is Monday evening. Of course, that means it's time for the Monday Night Euro review show. As always, my name is Rory and I'm joined by my very good friend...
Adam. Yes, our rustiness has been on the show for everyone to see. However, we welcome everyone. Hope you're all doing well. And more importantly, Rory, it has been a while since us two have been on together. So how are things generally in life?
I've missed your face, man. I've missed your face. No, it's been, all good. Obviously, I've had better Sundays than yesterday. I'm sure we'll get onto that as I sat trying not to cry on my sofa. But apart from that, all good. Biblical rain in Milan. I've just managed to towel myself off so I don't look too ridiculous after walking home from work. But how are you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, Obviously, the end of the season kind of vibes finished for me anyway a few weeks ago. So I've been kind of relaxing, chilling.
You're on the beach already. You're on the beach already.
Not worrying about title races or anything like that. So, but I have to say, really unfortunate about Crew Alexandra there, Rory. I do feel for you. I did watch some of this first half, I want to say. And yeah, unfortunately, it did feel like they were a bit scared, weren't they? They were a bit scared on the day. But
it was. I'm going to do a quick 30 seconds on it. Incredible season. Super proud of the team. The better team won on the day. Crawley played incredible football. The job that manager is doing there is insane. Yes, the players they're finding from lower league, is it Lolos, was incredible. Orsi, his first goal, the quality for that goal was insane. The better team definitely won. I'm delighted for Crawley. Just one step too far for us, but we will always have that night in Doncaster. And despite all the Port Vale fans and Doncaster fans piping up on Twitter yesterday, delighted. I'm delighted that you wasted your Sunday hate watching Crew Alexandra, because I think that must be a really dark place to be, I'll be honest.
Especially at midday on a Sunday, right? Exactly. When it was piping hot here.
Go out and see your families or something, guys. It was a waste of time, unfortunately. But yeah, we're going to leave that there because, that was the first horrible part of the day. We'll get on to the second horrible part of the day, I suppose. Yeah. But we're going to be positive. We're going to talk about our highlights of the weekend. Adam, what was your highlight, your moment of the weekend that kind of cheered you up, put a smile on your face?
Yeah, there was a few, wasn't there? But I'm going to go Serie A, given that we are the Anglo-Italian pod. And I had to remind myself of Ricardo Rodriguez. But he made himself known to everyone. And I forgot about this record. He's never actually scored for Torino up until that game against Milan on Saturday. And he scores an absolute rocket. So that was my moment of the weekend.
Caicedo-esque, right? Saving your first goal for an absolute banger.
Better than Caicedo's.
Absolutely incredible. Well, guys, I'm going to give it. He has turned up. I'm going to give him a bit of an intro because, we all know his game, right? He disappeared before the North London derby, and now he's popping up again. But without further ado, here he is. Ben, how we doing, man? You good?
I'm back. I'm back. No, I don't want to make it seem like I was like before the North London derby. I went into hiding, but I'm back now. I'm in safe territory. It's good to be back. It is.
Yeah,
good to be back.
I'm sure. I'm sure. You made it in perfect timing because we're going to go for Ben, your highlight of the week.
Yeah.
So go for it.
Well, I was at Bramall Lane yesterday watching Spurs secure Europa League qualification against Sheffield United, which was great. Good performance from Kulusevski, two goals. Could he play up front? Could that be the moment of the week? Probably not. I think my moment of the week wouldn't necessarily be City winning the title, but what I'd probably say was when the false rumour went round at the Emirates that West Ham had equalised. I think that was probably my moment of the week because, like, I know it's funny because it's Arsenal, but that happens every single
time.
year, and it's just like, how in this day and age are people still getting done by that? Like, you've got a phone. Just check your phone. Like, it's not as if people are like, I don't know. Like, it's not as if back in the day where one person's got the radio in and then it's like one person says something, it spreads like wildfire. Just check it. Just check your phone.
It came from the Everton fans. So whichever idiot Arsenal fan saw an Everton fan going 2-2 and was like, oh yeah, I believe him.
Yeah.
Like, you're a moron.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw a tweet. I think it might have been Carl Anker. I'm not sure, but it was like, guys, be safe out there. There is going to be a false rumor about a goal. Make sure you're not the person who falls for it. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, as someone who's been done by that, well, definitely probably multiple times, but one time very much sticks out in my mind. It was when we were going for the Champions League. I think it was Bale's last season.
Okay.
You were away at Newcastle and we were at home to Sunderland. And you went 1-0 up, and then there was a rumour where it went round that Newcastle had equalised, and then we scored the winner. And I think even our players thought that we got in the Champions League because everyone was just like, I think Michael Dawson was just like, yes, like it just went too far, and it was just like, oh God, that stings. But no, that was funny. That was a funny moment. But yeah, that was probably my highlight of the weekend.
I don't know. I couldn't agree more. I was expecting worse. I'll be honest. That's fine.
Oh no. Look, I don't want to. I'm not going to come and. I know I've disappeared for a few weeks, but I'm not going to come and gloat too much because these last couple of weeks has just been horrible. And even like yesterday, I've got a lot of Arsenal mates who could have got it far worse than they were going to get it, but it doesn't feel quite the same, especially after what happened last week with the City game, which is an experience I never want to go through again. So you know, you should be proud of the team, and you should. I
am incredibly proud. It's insane. But my highlight of the week is from Serie A as well, and I'm going to go for Lilian Thuram clipping Marcus Thuram around the head as he jumped along to Chi non salta Juventino, and he ran up and slapped him around the back of the head, which I did enjoy. Seeing Lilian Thuram in an Inter shirt kind of melted my brain a little bit, though. Like, did you see that after the game, Adam? It was a bit shocking, right?
It's not the first time I've seen him in the San Siro not knowing what to do. And at that moment, he came with his Juventus attitude. I think the other kind of twist is, I didn't know if you've seen this, Rory, but Davide Frattesi's sister is the girlfriend of Weston McKennie. So there was a picture of them two on the Juventus pitch, and they look so alike. Just Frattesi obviously has shorter hair. That's the only exception with it. But it was a bit of a mind fuck in that respect as well, from my point of view. Like, it looks like Weston McKennie was cuddling up to David Frattesi.
No, absolutely love that. Also, very lastly, Ben, I don't know if you saw. Have you seen Big Jim Ratcliffe's PR tour? He's been giving interviews. Trying to endear himself to the Manchester United fans and fans in general. And he talked about Brexit. I always love a billionaire being asked about Brexit and the state of the country. His comments were, there's too many immigrants, and all the public services are fucked. It needs more investment. Like, he hasn't moved all his money to Monaco and offshore bank accounts.
Yeah, make it make sense. Make it make sense. He's a real man of the people, isn't he? Trying to get everybody back in the office as well. Trying to get everybody back in the office 5 days a week as well, isn't he? The culture at the club has just evaporated. But God, I've seen too much of his face and heard too much of his voice, frankly.
I think there's a lot of United fans that are missing the silent Glazers now already. Like, can you just go back to that, please? But guys, we're gonna move on and kind of go into the main part of the show, I suppose. Let's talk about the Premier League, and let's start with Manchester City. Manchester City. When I find the banner, where is it? Man City make it 4, and here we go. I'm gonna open up with I'm sick of seeing the number 115 now. So I just want to talk about sporting merit, talk about the team on the pitch, talk about Guardiola. The rest of it will come out in the wash, right? So. What a team, what a performance. There's no beating them. They always just get over the line. Like, Ben, the points total Arsenal had this year wins the league last year. But now City have just gone 2 points more. There's just no point. There's no way getting ahead of them.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as Guardiola's here, it's just you just feel like you're going to still have a mountain to climb in terms of surmounting that gap, which is ridiculous considering, like you said, the point total that you got wouldn't just win the league this year. It'd win the league in basically any year before Pep Guardiola stepped foot in the Premier League, really. And it kind of makes you realise and appreciate the pain that Liverpool fans went through during that period of how many 90-plus finishes points finishes do they have on the clock. It's ridiculous, and it feels kind of insurmountable. Which, I mean, for you to take it to the final day like you did and still feel like that, it's just testament to the kind of the brutal nature of the side that Guardiola has put together. And I'm like you, and I know like I'm not as much in a position to kind of sit here and bemoan the 115 charges because it's not necessarily directly affecting my team. Like you're supporting the side that's going up against them in the title race, so you'd have more of a right to say, well, to make the case for their titles being a little bit more illegitimate. And I'm like you, I'm bored of seeing it because it's just like you have to appreciate what this team has done. And like you said, what will be, and what comes out, we can have that debate further down the road because I'm sure it all will come out in the wash one way or another. Whether they get done for everything or not is a different question, but there will be some sort of punishment, surely. But when you look at the team, it's just incredible. And you look at the way Foden stepped up this year and in this run, like how many times have we talked about Kevin De Bruyne in the title race for City? And although he had kind of had an impact on it, certainly in that, I remember that game against Palace where he scored a couple of great goals against Brighton as well with that header.
The Newcastle game when he came on as well. Yeah.
Almost immediately coming back after injury. But Foden has kind of taken that mantle this year. And to score that goal in the first minute of the game, almost it doesn't fit. That doesn't really happen in games that affect title races. They're obviously a lot more cagey. And I know West Ham had nothing to play for. But for him to do that in the manner that he did in the first minute of the game and kind of make it look so comfortable and make him look like the star that he is in this league and star that he has been. For me, the worthy winner of Player of the Year.
Yeah.
City were just professional yesterday. They just got it done. I was at the Spurs game, so I didn't watch the full game, but watched everything back on Match of the Day and stuff. And just the way they kind of got the job done was testament to the kind of gritty nature of the side that Guardiola's put together. For all their quality, they just know how to get over the line. And it kind of had to be Rodri scoring that goal as well, turning up in that game. He scored the goal that I can't remember whether it was the goal that put them level or won the game in the 3-2 against Villa. I think it might have been Gundogan, wasn't it? Actually, but he's just always there. Champions League final as well. Very similar goal actually, just laid off on the edge of the box and just strokes it in. But Rodri superb. City. Excellent. I mean, West Ham did their bit to make it difficult. Kudus scoring like basically the goal of the
single-handedly getting that done. Like, that was genuinely incredible. But I think Foden, we just had the comment here from Matty Kushner. Foden is a special player. He'll be one of the greatest to ever play in the Premier League in the next 10 years, in my opinion. He's already won it 6 times. He's 23 years old. Like, it is mental. But Adam, like, that is the story there. Like, if you're a City fan, you'd be like, yeah, okay, we've got all this money, we've got all this whatever, but it's a lad from 10 minutes down the road who's becoming the icon of this team. He's going to be the next Kevin De Bruyne, but with possibly more goal output, which is terrifying. Like, that's the story for City fans. As City fans, they must be absolutely loving that, right?
Yeah, 100%. Because I think this arguably was probably the easiest Man City team to an extent to have got at, given the circumstances that Gundogan had left. Kevin De Bruyne was missing for half a season, for example. Maybe some
Haaland
of the players
was injured for a bit as well. Yeah.
So I think there's little elements during the course of the season that gave hopes to the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool during the course of it anyway. So it's one of those that, unfortunately, the second half of the season, City just seemed to just pull it off. And I think Rodri made an interesting comment after the match saying, in the particular matchup against Arsenal, he saw a bit of fear in the Arsenal players and the way they approached it. And he knew from that moment onwards that Man City were just going to go ahead and just win every game, regardless of them needing to do it. he just knew there was confidence and it was mentally. And I think you can tell that when you compare how Arsenal have kind of played in those games since that particular matchup. And, I just feel like it's really unfortunate because any other season Arsenal probably do win a league, but it is just down to that mentality. And I think there's a few elements of Arsenal's game that they're going to mature from this experience. They will get better. There's nothing to say that, this experience was actually bad, because I think that actually builds the team's mentality going forward. It's just little elements, little moments during the course of the season. We can kind of berate VAR for the majority of the teams in the Premier League. And that's probably happened to both Man City at times, but less so, and probably more so to Arsenal, I would argue. So yeah, there's elements, but I think this is a good learning curve. This is the element I want to kind of drag upon that, despite all of this, good kind of positive vibes for the season ahead, I would say. It's just down to how Arteta plans it. I think that's the key, and who he manages to push on or pull on, and bring in. I think that's the element. So I'm seeing a lot about Ramsdale moving on potentially.
Yeah, probably.
Then it's a question mark about who he's going to bring in. So still a lot of hope for you, Rory. But
I think the Rodri comments kind of annoyed me a bit, and I'm going to try not to go off too much, but we took 4 points off City this year, and at the Emirates, they didn't have a shot past the 34th minute. Like, they didn't try to win the game at the Emirates either, right? Like, we took a 0-0 at the Etihad, and I would still take that 0-0. That's not the game that's fucked us out of the title. The game that fucked us out of the title was the two losses against Fulham, whatever it was, a draw and a loss against Fulham, and the 2 losses against Villa, right? Those are the games, those games where, and even like Villa are a decent side. They finished top 4, right? There's no disgrace losing to them, but those are the games that lost it. I don't think, if you're going to turn around to us and say, oh, what you didn't do was win at the Etihad, well, go fuck yourself. It's the hardest place to win. Like, nobody wins there, right? That's not where you lose a title. I think it's all fine for Rodri to say that 6 months after the game when they've wrapped up the title and go, oh, I knew it then. Oh, did you, mate? Why didn't you say it then? Like, if you know what I mean, I just think his comments annoyed me, as you can see, a little bit. Yeah. I don't think that's where we lost the title, honestly. I think any team, if you offer them a 0-0 going into the Etihad, they'd be like, deal. Yeah, we'll leave. Like, so I don't think that's where it is. But before we move on to Arsenal and I go off on another rant, I wanted to give a little bit of a tip of the hat to David Moyes. There was no favour for his old mate Arteta, unfortunately. But did you have any faith that he was going to get anything out of that performance? It's been a bit of a weird season for West Ham. Like, it's been decent, but they've got the worst defence outside the bottom 3.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been really, really, really strange. I think that I also feel sorry for their fan base, because I think they're constantly kind of vilified for wanting that step up. And I think it's almost taken too literally. And I think the kind of mainstream media, who, especially when you listen to the things like TalkSport, who kind of have those older heads that have been in the game for a longer period of time and all that, can't see why West Ham want that change. And it's not as if West Ham fans are unappreciative of what Moyes has done. It's just they feel they want that more progressive step. Whether that's going to come with Lopetegui or not, who knows? But I think they're very much appreciative of what he's done. I actually felt really sorry for Moyes when he came out. Did you hear what he said on Friday, where that one West Ham fan said to him, I think, I don't know, was it when they got battered by Palace?
Yeah, it's like that cup win means nothing. Like, we only
because we played Atalanta, Fiorentina, and I can't remember who.
Alkmaar, was it?
Yeah, and it was like, whoa, oh, cheers, mate, brilliant. It's just like, especially when you got basically all the other rest of the fan base going, that was the best night of our lives supporting West Ham. You've got one dickhead that's come out, which kind of shows how much you should value his opinion when you just listen to the rest of the fans. But yeah, no, I think. I mean, naturally, as a Spurs fan going into that game, there is an element in the back of your mind of thinking, oh, if any manager could shit out a draw there, it probably would be David Moyes. But they were kind of on the beach. Obviously, no, like Jared. But as soon as I was on the train up to Sheffield and I saw Jared Bowen had tonsillitis, I was like, well, yeah, I think we'll be all right, lads. I think we'll be all right, lads. But yeah, no, Moyes, I think he can go out of West Ham with his head held very much high. I like I said, I didn't see the game, so I don't know what. I assume the West Ham fans kind of gave him some nice send off, but
yeah, I think he got a bit of a there was a warm, but they were too busy singing "Are you watching Declan Rice?" Like, I don't think they were really that bothered.
Moyes was just joining in, just leading. But no, I like David Moyes. You have to recognise what he's done, and although it's been a weird season. If you strip everything else away, it has been a weird season for them because they've shown so much quality. at points with Bowen, Kudus, and Paqueta, and kind of how many of them stick alive and stay there for next season is remains to be seen. I think Bowen and Kudus will stick around, but Paqueta seems like he's going to move on. So it'd be interesting to see what Lopetegui can do. But no, David Moyes, he deserves a hell of a lot of credit for what he's done. Has given West Ham fans a night and a few years that they won't ever really forget. So.
Well, this is it. In terms of what their median performance is for league finishes, it's like overperformed massively. It's like never been out of the top 10, I don't think, and he picked them up in the relegation zone. Like, it's incredible the job he's done. But Adam, it does feel like this squad has more attacking quality than he's getting out of it, right?
I think so. And there's always been those rumours about how the infrastructure behind him has been working. So there's always been the clash in terms of transfer policy. You saw that with Scamacca, for example, and how that kind of panned out. And I think that's where the direction of the club is going, that they are a lot more focused on bringing in kind of talents that can push them on to the next level, as Ben alluded to. But they need maybe potentially a manager that has got that little bit more nous about him. And it's a hard one to kind of measure because Lopetegui, I don't necessarily think is that step up personally, but I think he's got credentials potentially that may favour the bigger occasions, and I think he's set himself the opportunity, I suppose, to really push on now in terms of his career, because I think he hasn't really pushed on wherever he's been. That's the thing. So maybe Sevilla was the last time.
I wouldn't trust him at all. He's walked out of how many jobs, like at the worst possible time? He left Spain a day before the World Cup, of the Euros, and then he left Wolves a week before the season started. I think he's not the guy I'm going to be like, exactly. Like, we're going to build a future around you, or whatever, if you know what I mean. Like, Jesus, I think it's a really odd appointment. I was much more encouraged when I saw names like Amorim. Obviously, he's been hunted by a lot of clubs, I think. But names like him, the guy at Nice, the Italian guy, what's his name? He was linked with Brighton as well. I saw his name kind of briefly linked to West Ham. I think there's more exciting names on Lopetegui, right? He did all right with Wolves, but it wasn't outstanding.
Yeah. Is it worth it with the grief that you're likely to get considering his track record? Is it worth that kind of step up? Like, he's probably a better manager than David Moyes, but I'm not sure. Yeah, it's not that inspiring. Like, and the style of football again is not exactly the most
advanced
positive. So be a weird one.
Weird one. But we're going to move on from City and West Ham. Congratulations, City. Genuinely, I don't want to come across as fucking bitter in this pod. I'm trying really hard not to. And we are going to very quickly talk about Arsenal. We eventually got the job done. 2-1. It was a bit of a weird afternoon. The atmosphere at the Emirates was really, really odd, between people falling for fake goals and the hope lasting all of 2 minutes. It was a really weird atmosphere, but I think it was important that Arsenal got a win. We needed to finish on a win. I wanted it to just be, the table showed that City had to win the last game. I didn't want it to be like we limped out. Bukayo Saka finally got a rest. That's nice to see. And we won without him, so that's massive. Nice cameos from Smith Rowe. Thomas Partey, it was time to leave years ago. I can't wait for you to get out of the fucking club. And Kai Havertz, I just wanted to give a bit of a love into Kai Havertz. Seeing he's someone who comes across as not particularly emotional, and seeing him at the end of the match when you could see clearly how much the players genuinely believed that they were going to do it and how gutted he was. In the run-in, he has scored like 15 goals in the run-in since since the turn of the year. Assists, he has just been so fundamental. And I think, Adam, for a signing that when he came in, was very, very unsure about, and someone who had an incredibly difficult start to the season, it's been insane, just the step up and the consistency he's delivered at this time of the year, right?
Yeah, I think he needed a little bit of a confidence boost after the kind of exploits at Chelsea. We knew there was a good player under Leverkusen and that spell. So I think there was always going to be a player that was unearthed. It just needed to be played in the right position. And I think Arteta's got the best out of him. Obviously, he experimented with him on the left-hand side of midfield, which hasn't really worked out. But obviously, being that kind of solitary kind of man up top has actually helped develop his game. And I think he's taken a lot more responsibility. And as a result, he's been more of a goal threat for you guys. I think he's had to step up, unfortunately, because there's no one around him that's willing to kind of be that kind of target man. So I think he's really improved his game under Arteta. And I think, next season, he'll definitely push on. I think he just needs someone a bit more consistent alongside him.
Yeah.
I don't know if Trossard's necessarily the answer personally, but I think he needs someone that he can feed off at times, because there is elements in the game where he just needs to drop off from being the target man and be someone that floats around that kind of area. But I think that's the problem. Potentially Arteta will have a dilemma, because Odegaard likes to do that kind of thing. And I've started to see maybe Saka creep into those positions at times as well. So there's going to be a balancing act, I think, that needs to be achieved, but that might open the opportunity of rotation. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, Kai Havertz, I definitely rated him before he went to Chelsea, and I still think there's a player that will get better and better. It'll be interesting to see how he develops in the Euros as well with Germany. Yeah. So that's going to be a massive opportunity to unearth what he's learned this season as well.
Yeah, I've just been super impressed with his work ethic and everything. His work off the ball, his runs, his defensive work is just absolutely insane. So love that guy. And also, I suppose, Tomiyasu getting a goal is absolutely lovely. Always love seeing that man smile. But it'll be interesting to see who we get in the summer. I think a winger is kind of needed. Saka needs more rests. I want to address midfield because Thomas Partey, as I said, should have been gone a very long time ago for many different reasons. But we do need to replace him. And we need a left back. I think left back has been a bit of an issue this year. So hopefully we get that cleared up. But I really liked Arteta's speech at the end where it was just like, don't be satisfied. We're not satisfied. We're coming for more. We'll be back again. And I just really love. It was a short speech, which is always good. You don't want to go on for too long, do you? But Ben, I'm gonna let you talk about Everton. Is that all right? I'm still a bit tender of you talking about Arsenal. No, I think I would have rather had the fixtures switch. I would want City to play Everton, and I would want us to play West Ham. I feel like Sean Dyche and Everton, in the run they're in at the moment, they defended like absolute warriors yesterday. Pickford made some incredible saves. Brathwaite again, just incredible. Like Sean Dyche is genuinely, if you include the points total, like Everton have had a bloody good season. Like the job he's doing there, I feel like it's kind of going under the radar, right?
Yeah, I was just going to look at the table. I don't actually know where they'd be if you gave the points back, but if you take that away, it has been really, really positive for them. And I think, like you said, I think what is testament to Sean Dyche and Everton. I remember you guys played Everton on the final day a few years ago. I think it was under Lampard.
We always do. It happens a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say
it happens a lot.
When we were both going for top four, and it was like, well, you knew Arsenal beat Everton because they just will. Everton got nothing to play for. They're safe. They just got safe, I think, under Lampard at that time. And then it was kind of the same feeling going into this of like, oh, surely Arsenal. I didn't think you'd roll them over because, again, how solid they've been. And I think yesterday's performance, from what I saw, was testament to what Sean Dyche has done because they had nothing to play for, nothing on the line. They've been through the mill this season, on and off the pitch, Everton, really, when you think about kind of what's kind of gone against them in terms of the points deductions and all that kind of stuff. And there's always been a cloud with the ownership as well. There's been a hell of a lot to deal with from Everton perspective. And what Sean Dyche has been able to do, especially in the second half of the season, to really get this Everton team on track and be bloody hard to play against. Like Pickford yesterday, some of the saves that he made, even with the Havertz goal, the way they're scrapping there at the end to still try and make sure it doesn't go over the line. They're putting everything on the line to make sure that Arsenal don't get that winner, and they did, and deservedly so in the end, really. But Calvert-Lewin, I thought, looked sharp as well yesterday. He had that one that hit the post, and then he had a decent effort in the second half as well. He cut in, and Raya made that save. And again, any man, I think Pep Guardiola will probably struggle to get Calvert-Lewin back to his best just because he's been so unlucky with injuries. Yeah. But the fact that he's kind of managed to get a tune out of him, and a lot of his goals have kind of been important for them this year as well. But the defence is so impressive. I think, for sort of people's team in the seasons, I think a lot of people would probably have Pickford in there, and it's probably deservedly. Some of the saves that he's made at crucial times. I think they've kept the most clean sheets behind Arsenal, I think, in the league. They've been superb. But and there's a lot to kind of be, again, with Everton, it's like one of those things where how many times have we been in this position where they've ended the season like this, and you have that feeling where it's like, we've done it, we're safe. And actually with this manager, there's a lot to be kind of happy about. Yeah. But just the off-field stuff is just like, it feels like they're just one step forward, two steps back in terms of how they can actually progress in the long term, even especially with the stadium coming as well. Like, how is that going to sort of affect how much money they're able to spend and all that stuff? We kind of saw that with Spurs, how that sort of hamstrung us a little bit for a few years, and then you kind of get out the dark, and then you're able to sort of kick on financially. So it's going to be an interesting few years for Everton coming up, but they should be really proud of kind of what they did this season, despite the adversity on and off the pitch, and what they've gone through. But you on Arsenal, though, I think that what you said about Arteta's speech at the end was very true, because you saw what Ten Hag was saying after the United game the other day, basically rinse and repeat exactly what he said last year. But I think what's been really impressive about Arteta is just the fact that he's very straight to the point and very just like, look, that he's got that, he's instilled that mentality at Arsenal. And it's like, you know, people will make jokes about Arsenal being bottlers and all that kind of stuff, but it's just like you can't be bottlers if you're going up against the best team in the world. Mm-hmm. Like you said about the amount of points that you've got being basically enough in most other Premier League seasons. And even like, if I was an Arsenal fan, to have that, you should be proud and celebrate what you've done this season. But for your manager to come out and have that attitude of like, nah, we want more. We're not done. We're not interested. And I think there's kind of a lot of parallels to this Arsenal side now and sort of what we went through at Tottenham under Pochettino. And we were in very similar positions of like being really close in two title races, not quite getting over the line, cup semi-finals, finals, Champions League final, all that kind of stuff. The difference with Arsenal and Spurs is that we never kicked on. We never had that thing of just like Arteta is moulding what he's trying to do at Arsenal of what Pep's done at City. And I know people will laugh at that, but how else, if you can't beat them, join them. And he's got that experience because he's been through it with City as well. And what City have done, and Adam, you kind of alluded to it earlier with getting rid of the likes of Mahrez and Gundogan, who were so crucial in title races over the year for them, clutch kind of players like Rodri has sort of become now, is that they've been brutal with the squad. And you were talking about wanting to get rid of the likes of Partey, etc. That's what you've got to do. You've got to chop, change, be brutal, bring in players. I'd love to know, like, from your perspective, whether you think Arsenal should actually sign a striker, because you said there, like, a left back, a winger, and maybe a midfielder. I find the kind of punditry around the striker thing at Arsenal really lazy, because I think being linked with like Gyökeres and Isak is super exciting. I think Isak is probably a better signing because you can play him out wide as well. But like, there's been so much talk about like Arsenal just don't quite have that ruthlessness in front of goal, that they need that number 9. It's like, like you said, Havertz has scored how many goals in the running for Arsenal? And the way you play isn't necessarily set up to play with that proper number 9. I don't think that's really the problem. That's not why you've not won the league. I found it a bit weird, to be honest. But I'd like to know.
I think, like, we've scored 91 goals this year. Like, we've scored plenty of goals. The issue is we share the goals around. Like, we share the goals around, and we don't have, like, City share the goals around and have Erling Haaland, right? But it's like they've scored 5 more goals than us this season. So it's like you're looking at it, you're going, no, I don't think the attack is the issue. The issue is we haven't got squad depth. We can't rest Bukayo Saka. If he doesn't play, we have nothing else there. Like, Martinelli had a pretty average season overall. He came in yesterday and did all right, had a few flashes, but he's not a right winger. That was just a short, like, sticker there because Saka can't play today. I think the issues are in midfield and left back. I think midfield, we need someone who does what Partey does, those like incisive passes, quick turns, like the switching the transition quickly. We need someone like that. That is absolutely fundamental in this team because we do not have it. And a winger. I think a striker would be third down the list. And I think the name that excited me the most, because it wouldn't be too much money and it's another kind of like project, was Benjamin Sesko from RB Salzburg. Was a striker where I thought that's perfect. That is perfect. We can have Havertz a striker. We have him on the bench. We bleed him in over a couple of seasons. He's our option off the bench. Gives us a different profile. He's also fucking sick. Everything I've seen, he looks like Zlatan. It's insane. So, like, that is a player. I'd much rather get a player like that and invest heavy in midfield than go out and get Alexander Isak. As much as I love Isak, I just don't think that's where the priority in the team is at the moment. And yeah, the punditry is super lazy. It's just like, oh, well, just get Lionel Messi and then you'll win the league. Like, it's just fucking ridiculous. Like, look at the squad and where we've had issues this year. And it's Zinchenko and it's Gabriel Jesus not scoring for 6 months and it's whatever. Like, I think, we need to be super ruthless this summer. And I think there's going to be a few players that people aren't going to be happy about leaving. But it needs to happen. We're going to leave Arsenal there in Everton. And I want to go down too. We're staying in London because, bloody hell, it's a lot of fun down in South London at the moment. Oliver Glasner and Crystal Palace. He's turned Jean-Philippe Mateta into Thierry Henry, and Eze and Elise are balling out. Adam, I just pray, I'm sorry, Palace fans, and we're going to have a Palace fan on soon, but I pray they can keep it together for a long time, or just a little bit longer, because it's been so much fun to see, right?
Yes, we speculated this on 2 live streams ago when I had Kieran on. And I'm just purring at how potentially this Crystal Palace squad could evolve over next season, because you got Mateta in just a rich vein of form. I feel sorry that he's not in the French squad, for example. Michael Olise is another one that, for example, has not been picked for the French squad. And again, that's a bit of a surprise given their circumstances. And then you've got Eze, who might not be in England's squad, which is weird to even contemplate. I don't understand how
he's not going to be there, boys. Just don't get your hopes up. He's not going to be there. He's not going to be there.
But I mean, just the fact that you can see even from that game against Villa how they were just pinging it across. And Aston Villa, as much as we can say they were on the beach, I don't think they could have offered too much against them. They were just in that kind of rich vein of form. And you know, you've got even the right back, Muniz, who looks really strong as well. Superb, so he's kind of that evolved right back where he's almost as tall as maybe even taller than Ben White, but he's got the athleticism to kind of get in down the channels, get those cross balls as well. So I think dynamically they look really good. And you just think Glasner's going to add pockets of players into that squad as well. Plus he's going to have the likes of Decore, who's going to come back from injury as well, who was fundamental for the first part of the season as well. So I just think this is such an exciting little project. It feels like an FM kind of challenge already in itself, you know, and I just... Yeah, Glasner's just really added to what I think was missing before, which was just confidence. It just seemed like they just lacked a bit of confidence and foresight of how to play the ball. And now they've got that. You just feel that even if they do come to a point where they're struggling for wins, Glasner's going to help them out. He's going to kind of progress these players on. And like you say, we just hope they don't get picked apart, because if one of them gets picked, you can maybe accept it. But if two of them get picked apart, then I just think that's going to cause a lot of issues. But fingers crossed for Palace, because I think once we get this Palace fan as well on for our pod, Rory, he'll be kind of cursing if that ever happens, really.
I know, I feel terrible for any like fans that support teams like that in the Premier League. The second any of your players do well, it's like, oh well, where are they going? Where's Glasner going? Bayern Munich want Glasner now. It lasts like, you get joy for about 3 minutes. But if we go down this route of Crystal Palace, they keep it all together? Glasner gets to bring in this isn't his squad yet, right? He gets to bring in a few players that he wants, gets Decore back. Ben, we've seen a lot of teams chopping and changing in the European spots in the Premier League recently. There's been a few teams like, Villa Champions League, West Ham have been in there, Do you think there's enough quality there that he can get, like, he's a Europa League winning manager? Like, Palace, he could get them there if they manage to keep the band together, right?
100%. I've said this for so long with Palace. It's just like they feel like they've always been one or two players away, or maybe not even one or two players, but that manager away from being that team that sneaks in there. Like we've seen Brighton get into Europe over the last couple of years, and the fact that Palace finished above Brighton as well shows you kind of the trajectory of the two clubs. And obviously there's no kind of love lost there as well, so that would have been very sore for Brighton fans yesterday. But how much fun would it be to see that team in Europe? Mateta feels like a Europa League striker.
Yeah, 100%.
Feels like 100%. I love it. He might be. I've said for ages, Eze is my favourite player in the Premier League outside of Spurs. Like, absolutely love him. I love the way he plays with that smile on his face, but he's also got that ruthless killer instinct, which you saw for the 2 goals yesterday. He just whacked him.
Yeah.
It was just like he's so fleet of foot and so dainty. But then when he gets to the edge of the box, just pulls the trigger, just back like. And the link up with Mateta, but Mateta, shirt tucked in, that celebration as well, just like that to the fan. I love him so much. This is the hallmarks of maybe the greatest streets won't forget team ever we might ever see in the Premier League.
I was just about to say, he is the most streets won't forget player that is currently in the Premier League. In 20 years, it'll be like, do you remember Jean-Philippe Mateta in the summer of 2024? Like...
and the fact that it's at Palace as well feels so right, because of like Balassi, Zaha in the past, of like the streets won't forget players that they've had. But like when you look at that team yesterday, like obviously they're missing Decore. Chris Richards has been someone that's been really impressive. Like I don't think anybody really kind of thought too much of him. No. He's been playing in midfield and at centre back. Obviously, Mark Gay coming back, which is massive for them. He's another one that should be in the England squad. If Eze doesn't at least make it into that 30-man preliminary squad tomorrow, we've got a massive, massive problem, because I'm not saying he's someone that's going to win England the Euros, but to have him available, so versatile as well. Exactly, can play on the left hand side. He's got that magic.
People,
I love him. But and Adam Wharton as well. It's such an exciting project there. Like you said, Adam, it kind of feels like a little FM save, doesn't it? Really, with this sort of team they've put together, and the fact that they've Palace are so good at keeping hold of their players, and the fact that they stuck £100 million on Glasner's head to buy him as well shows you that no, this is the guy not going anywhere. It's so exciting, and I don't think you'll probably find a happier fan base in the Premier League right now than Palace. But also, again, naturally they're the sort of club that you fear that they could get picked off. But I think they might only lose one, and I think it might be Elise. But then again, it's like the club that he's being linked with the most is Man United, and it's like I know that he's maybe apparently a boyhood Man United fan, but like, would you swap where? I know it sounds crazy, but would you swap where you're going?
It's not that crazy, honestly. I don't think it's that crazy. I'd be like, I'm going to sit out and see what happens for another year. Like, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
but they're very good at keeping hold of their players. So I think they should go in with they should go into summer with the expectation that everybody will be staying, and then if something changes, because I think they've already slapped at least 60 million on both Eze and Elise, and there'll be plenty of suitors for both of them. I hope personally, Eze would be my number one signing for Spurs, but they're a fantastic side. They're so fun to watch. And I don't think you find a happier kind of fan base in the league at the moment. They were amazing yesterday.
Yeah, well, the Palace fans will be praying for the transfer window to shut already, but we're praying for you. Aston Villa, I think Jack Grealish might have gone back and arranged the party post-Champions League qualification. I think I saw like the Aston Villa fans were joining in with the Crystal Palace chants and cheering the goals and stuff. Like, just did not give a solitary fuck. So fair play about that. What an incredible season. Ollie Watkins getting Playmaker of the Year, which I did not realise was a thing, but good work. And fantastic season for him. And before we leave the Premier League, I suppose we just need to go to the relegation zone, I suppose. And they've all got sent straight back down again. I was looking at the table and I was like, 27 points would have kept you safe this year.
That's mad.
It is. Do you remember in the early 2000s, it was 40 points. 40 points is the benchmark. You need 40 and then you'll be safe. Adam, is it a worrying sign about the quality of teams coming up? Is it just reactionary because it's only one season? Like, all three of them, if it wasn't for the points totals, they would have been relegated weeks ago. Is it worrying that there's such a big gap in quality?
I think you only have to look at the financial side of things and you can see the disparity between it as well. And the fact that, championship clubs are having to spend we're not talking a couple of million, we're talking tens of millions now just to get themselves back into the Premier League. And, parachute payments has certainly helped that cause. I mean, for a well-run club like Luton, I think that's going to be reinvested into that team, but not only just in terms of team, but infrastructure as well. And, it benefits those kind of sides that are financially stable and, do it the right way. But as you allude to, they do seem to be lacking in terms of that playing ability wise. I think the gap is slightly starting to widen, but that's probably just because the gap that we used to kind of associate is now just being deepened by the fact that the bigger clubs are having almost 2 times the kind of strength in terms of depth, and that really makes it difficult for the likes of, say, like a Luton to compete in a season. And they've done valiantly well. I think this is the other thing you have to call out of all of the 3 sides. I think they've done the better out of the 3. But it's going to be a bit of a concern. And then you've got if we look at the teams that are likely to join them, like you've obviously got Leicester City and Ipswich Town, which Leicester City is not going to be straightforward. They've got financial issues going on right now, and they could be starting a season with minus points.
With the points deduction, right? Yeah.
Because of the financial handling of their situation when they were in the Premier League. So, that's going to have a major effect in terms of their transfer ability. And, this is the wider issue. It's about how maybe the Premier League can get that right in terms of what they do to implement that closing of the gap. But I don't think realistically that will ever happen. That's the realistic aspect. But I think if you are well coached, this is the thing, you can maybe scrape it for a season. This is the things that, if you look at the examples of Brighton and Brentford, if you do enough to stay in there, then you can build on it. And that's through the monies that you get. But I think it's getting a little bit wider. And if you look at the clubs that have been there historically in the Premier League, your likes of Norwich's, for example, Sheffield Wednesday, you can see they're struggling to even be in the top half of the Championship these days. So, it's going to be a huge ask. It'll be interesting to see how Ipswich approach it, and hopefully they keep hold of Kieran McKenna, because I saw he was linked with Chelsea this week, which was like, I never saw that happening. It's an interesting one, but I think you even flagged it. Vincent Kompany's already been linked with Bayern Munich. I mean,
on what
crazy,
planet
isn't
are
it?
we living on? Like, what is happening? The man who didn't learn a lesson until 4 weeks before the fucking season ended, and then decided he tried to give it a go. Like, it says, I think it says more about Bayern Munich really, and how down they are at the moment trying to find a manager.
100%, yeah.
Like
I
they are debasing themselves trying to find a manager, right, Ben? It's incredible.
Yeah, it reminds me of the managerial hunt that Spurs went through, where we ended up with Gattuso and there was protests from our fans. Like, ended up with nearly getting Gattuso. But it also reminds me of Man United, what Bayern are going through. They're very similar kind of trajectories of like kind of old heads having too much influence and voice around the club, and just like the transfer strategy and like the fact that they're on their. Who is it linked today? Like Company, and I can't remember who the other manager was as well.
Gasperini has been linked with them in Italy. Yeah.
They've been rejected by about 8 managers, and it's just crazy. But I think you're right about Company. Like, I haven't been that impressed with him this year, but that does reflect worse on Bayern than it does on him. Like, he's done a good job at Burnley, and I think he'll go on to be a good manager. But the fact that, again, like you said about Kieran McKenna as well, being linked with the Chelsea job. That, again, I know it's kind of jumping away from the relegation thing, but like, how are we in a world as well where Chelsea are looking at still sacking Pochettino after what that is mental. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I actually think, like, with the teams that are coming up next year, I think one of the 2 playoff winners has got a better chance of maintaining the Premier League status than the 2 teams that went up automatically, especially Leeds. I think Leeds have maybe it's just because. I suppose Leicester and Southampton have obviously got that recent experience as well, but I think Leicester with the points deductions hanging over their head a little bit. Ipswich, I think Ipswich could either do like a Brentford and have a really exciting first season and then just sort of like decline over the next couple of years, or they could just go straight back down. Like
I was about to say they kind of give me and maybe Kieran McKenna's like will be a better coach and will adapt, but I kind of get the vibe of like, do you remember when Norwich used to come up playing fantastic football, then they try and play fantastic football like Burnley did this year, try and play fantastic football, and you just get slapped around for fucking 6 months, and then you're like, okay, it's too late now. So I think hopefully Kieran McKenna is a good enough coach and intelligent enough to be like, okay, we've played fantastic football. We can do that at times, but we need to be a lot more pragmatic. Otherwise, this is going to get ugly. Because I think, I agree with you, Ben. It's going to go one or two ways. But we did have a question, sorry, before we go. Which players do you think will come back to the Prem in the summer from the relegated teams? Well, I've already seen today Ross Barkley's agent has been on the phone and he is off to Aston Villa, making a return to Villa, which I think is quite a shrewd little move as a midfield backup option off the bench kind of vibe. But Adam, I'm going to go to you first. Which players from the teams relegated? I imagine there won't be many Sheffield United players. Which players from the relegated teams do you fancy to see back in the Prem next year?
I hate to kind of dismantle the team, but Luton seemed the most obvious. They've got a handful of players that I would easily take. Kaminsky for a goalkeeper backup. I think he's been really good, really solid when he's being called upon. Ogbene, is it, from the left-hand side?
Guy, you stole my one. Luton, he's my guy.
Really
I want him back in the Prem. You know?
Tafe Chong as well, who kind of plays in that middle of the park for Luton. I think he's been really good alongside Barkley. And I mean, up top, Elias Adebayo as well. I think he's been superb for them this season. So, yeah, there you go. I've dismantled Luton Town, which might not be a bad thing, but there you go. But I think genuinely they've been probably the most impressive out of all the 3 sides. I think I can't really name too many if I was to kind of dive into Burnley or, for example, maybe Sheffield United. Maybe, is it Erland Brouts from Burnley? I think he had his moments in midfield as well. But I couldn't really mention too many of the others, to be honest.
No, I think, Ben?
I mean, having watched Sheffield United in the flesh again yesterday, I'm absolutely not. They are so bad. But Burnley, there's a couple of little gems there when you look at like Zeki Amdouni and players like that, and Wilson Odobert, who you could see maybe getting picked up. They've got exciting young talent, but I think it's Luton, isn't it? Like they've actually had a lot of players that have really shown. Not it's not a discredit on Burnley, but I think. Maybe it's just people get swept up in the narrative of Luton a little bit, but they have got characters where, not just with the quality, but you think they've got characters that you think be ready for that Premier League to go back into the Premier League. I think Adebayo is a good one. I think he was getting linked with Everton earlier.
Yeah, that'd be a good move.
I think that'd be a really good move for them. I saw someone who I follow, an Everton fan, was saying that that would be a great signing for them. They could they've got that Chimiti as well, the young striker, that they could maybe then loan out, give him some more experience, and bring in someone that's actually going to challenge Calvert-Lewin a little bit more, because the goal that he scored against Everton a few weeks ago, that hold-up play and then the finish was just was ridiculous. But yeah, Luton are the team you're looking at. Kaminsky will be a really solid option for someone. Ogbene as well down that right-hand side. Alfie Doughty is a player as well that's excited a lot of people too. And the Barkley thing's interesting. I think that's a decent little move for Aston Villa. It didn't quite work out the first time, did it? He had that great start when Villa would battering everyone at the start of that season, and they beat Liverpool 7-2, and Grealish on fire. But and Barkley looked great, but it never really clicked for him after that, did it? Then he went to Nice, but I think it's a decent little move. Squad depth in Champions League football, in the way that Aston Villa play on the break, I think his ball carrying is going to be pretty important for that.
Yes.
And he just looks a little bit more robust now, Barkley, as well. I think he's kind of having played basically, I don't know if every minute, but he's played a hell of a lot of games for Luton this season. So I think it's a pretty decent move.
Yeah, no, I'm going to come with two Sheffield United players, because I had a mate who visited, who's a Sheffield United fan. He visited last weekend. It was a lot of therapy. I felt sorry for the bloke. But two players. Now, Hamer has always impressed me. I really like him as a player. I think he is a Premier League quality player. He has shone in a field of shit at Bramall Lane, and he's had moments where you're like, this guy knows what he's doing. And the young player, Arblaster, who they brought back from on loan from Port Vale, who was smashing it up in League One. They brought him in. He's come in as a young player, looks super exciting. I think Sheffield United fans will be hoping he sticks around, because he's like the one positive in that team at the moment. But those are two players that I think, especially Hamer, I think a lot of Premier League sides should be looking at him, because they're very, very, very capable midfielder and can absolutely smash them on occasion, score some bangers. So I think there is one positive for Sheffield United, but 104 goals, that is impressive. That is impressive. Just incredible. Honestly, my mate, the Sheffield United fan, it was a long weekend. We sat and watched, was it the Everton Sheffield United game? And it was like a bloody cruel and unusual torture. It was incredible, that game. But we're going to leave Serie A there for now, and we're going to leave the Premier League there, and we're going to go to Serie A. And I think we're going to start with Story of the Week, El Toro. Now, I didn't want to bring it up, because last time I mentioned it, they were close to Europe, and then they just stopped winning. But I'm sorry, Torino fans. We're going to make it. We're going to say it. They might just have a chance at Europe. And Adam, what a performance against Milan. Now, Milan in all sorts of mess, clearly on the beach, nothing left to play for, but still, incredible performance from Torino, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in those games, it's easy to be drawn into the kind of similar games as your opponents, right? And to play it safe. But I think, look, if you looked at the Ilicic's goal, that was in particular kind of highlighted how bad Milan were at the back. And, you know, Duvan Zapata, I've always been impressed with from his Atalanta days. But again, he led the line really superbly here. It just felt like the Torino that we've always kind of felt that were always on the cusp of maybe doing more than they actually ever kind of do in a league position. And it's great that they've got that little glimmer of hope, Rory, that they could actually make into Europe. And as I spoke to you offline, obviously this happens in the offset of even Juric also declaring that he won't be there next season, which is just ironic, because he was brought in to kind of push them on into kind of those higher echelons of Serie A as well as Europe. But yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic performance. I mean, cut off by that Ricardo Rodriguez goal. It was so sublime, and you could see how much it meant to his teammates as well, because it wasn't just him. It was all about what he's kind of done for that club, because being the captain as well, that means a huge amount for him. But especially against his old club, we forget, but he used to play for Milan as well. That's the thing. So I was so super happy for him more so. But yeah, the result puts him instead, because Napoli, being inconsistent as they ever are, that's helped them in terms of that position. I bet De Laurentiis is kicking himself that they haven't taken it more seriously in the league. But yeah, Torino stand a chance. So obviously the caveats we have to mention, Rory, is that we need Atalanta to win the Europa League and we need Fiorentina to win the Europa Conference League. So that will guarantee it.
Half of Serie A is getting into Europe this year. It just keeps growing. It's insane how many teams are in for next year. I just think it'll be all the way down to Sassuolo at this rate. But I wanted to talk about, Juric is interesting because obviously, was it the beginning of last season? There was the video at the beginning of this season of him having a fist fight with the sporting director in a car park. So it's kind of been in the post for a while, that he wasn't going to be sticking around. It's a shame because, as you said, it just feels like they're starting to get on that upwards curve. Now, I was lucky enough to go and watch Torino last week away at Verona. Maybe we'll get into my thoughts on Verona. It wasn't a pleasant trip, but Torino, it was a bit mad because it seemed like all of a sudden they just went, oh no, we'll win the game now. And they just switched. And the second they got that first goal, it was just game over. And the wing backs of Bellanova in particular and Rodriguez, the quality of crosses they get into the box. Yeah. And then when you've got a player like Zapata who's just so clinical in the air, it was just like I was really, really impressed with their performance, with the general quality across the squad. Unfortunately, Buongiorno missed that game, so I was really excited to see him. But a player that everyone's very excited about in the press here, all the fans I'm talking to, they want him starting at centre back for Italy. He's having a hell of a season, right? And it feels like he's probably going to be sold in the summer. We're doing a Palace to him, but he's had an outstanding season.
Yeah, I mean, when you consider where he was at the beginning of the season, no one had really even considered or spoken about him to where he is right now, where pretty much I would say most of the top four would want to sign him or at least snap him up. I'm sure those numbers will inflate after the Euros as well, because I can't see how he's not going to have a bad game for Italy. But yeah, I mean, as you rightly allude to, Raul Bellanova as well, he was a guy that Inter Milan discarded, and I think they regretted that as well, because right now it's rumours of Denzel Dumfries possibly going off. I don't think they've got necessarily the kind of depth down that right-hand side. He would have been absolutely brilliant. And given that he's a homegrown player as well, that would have been really helpful for their causes as well. But yeah, he's been superb this season. Like I say, Ilicic has been really impressive as well since that move from Hellas Verona. And Duvan Zapata, he's led the line superbly. So, I mean, that's forgetting about Milinkovic-Savic in goal. He's been superb as well. He's always solid and dependable. So, throughout that Torino squad, they've always had staples. They've just never been able to get that consistency in terms of the results. And they've proved it in the last few games, haven't they, Rory? So fingers crossed. Let's see what they can do. But yeah, Buongiorno, what a player. And I think, incredible. Wasn't it Ben wanted it in for Spurs, Buongiorno?
Yeah.
Buongiorno? I think it was, yeah.
He's looked so assured in Serie A this year and just been an absolute linchpin in that defense. And Torino, they're not a particularly exciting team, right? They don't score a lot of goals, but they don't concede a lot of goals. They really don't concede a lot of goals, and I think he's been a key part of that. But a centre back who probably won't be going to the Euros, Ben, Fikayo Tomori, had a game to forget. I think it was the first goal where he kind of runs into Thiaw and it all gets a bit messed up. But for Milan, it's just a bit of there's nothing left to play for, right? Is it a bit of a Villa and we just let him off?
I think so. The whole conversation about Tomori always really interests me, because I feel like from an outsider's perspective, it feels like everybody that's calling for him to play or be in the England squad for the last few years doesn't necessarily watch him a hell of a lot at Milan, whereas I think more of the people who would say, actually, I'm not sure he's ready, do watch more of him, because I think he's had, I think what's gone against him is that he's had quite a lot of games like the weekend where he's dropped a few clangers. I remember against Chelsea, I think it was in the Champions League last year. Yeah. He had an absolute stinker, and it's just like, when it matters in these kind of bigger games, I know it wasn't really a big game for Milan because they were on the beach, but he's just, or on the cusp of tournaments where it kind of really matters, he's just not really showed that kind of conviction in his defending. For me, again, obviously, earlier we were talking about the Eze thing, like with the prelim squad being announced tomorrow, I don't think he'll get in there. I don't think Tomori gets in there. I think that conversation has actually been done for like a good couple of years now. And I think people are just kind of dragging it out because they want that alternative to maybe Maguire. Or that's kind of it, really. Maguire, people just don't want to see Maguire around.
It's just him.
It's like Stones, Maguire. It's like people just a bit sick of Maguire. But I actually think when you consider what Maguire's done for England and chucking someone like Tomori in there, who wouldn't even be a guaranteed starter for England. I don't really see it. But yeah, Milan. I think overall, when you zoom out and look at it from a Milan perspective, I think it's just end of the season on the beach, and you kind of have to give the credit to Torino. But I don't think Tomori. I don't think Tomori makes it in there. It wouldn't be in my 30-man squad, I don't think, or 20. Then when you cut it down, even so, yeah, it's an interesting one. But yeah, fair play to Torino. That Rodriguez goal was absolutely ridiculous. There's something more satisfying as well about left-footed players striking the ball like that. It's just always, the aesthetic of it was so beautiful. But yeah,
it couldn't have been more in the corner, just absolutely unbelievable. But Adam, before we move on from Milan, it looks like Pioli's going. He basically is going. The players know he's going. Who are they going to bloody bring in? There's going to be so many managerial changes in Serie A this year. It's hard to keep up. Who are you fancying this week to take over Milan? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm losing track with the names they've actually been linked with. There's been talks with Paulo Fonseca was one of them. Sergio Conceição was another. I think the likelihood is De Zerbi, personally. This is purely based on...
He's a Milan fan as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a Milan fan. He would love to be ahead of a bigger team in Serie A. And I know Napoli's been quoted as well because De Laurentiis inevitably wants another coach. But I think
he's just lining up backups for when the first one doesn't work.
I think that will appease not just the fans, but also the board in terms of they've got a progressive manager, someone that likes to play aesthetically good football, maybe challenge Inter. That'll be a start for once. But more importantly, I think obviously being able to maybe push on in the cup competitions, which I think next season is going to be fascinating because as you alluded to, there's going to be a whole host of clubs in Europe, which I think is going to mash up the whole kind of system in terms of who's going to be the most consistent in terms of the performances in the league campaign as well. So I would not be surprised if we see a different winner for the Coppa Italia, for example, a different winner for the league again. And just more inevitably, I think we will see a lot of Italian clubs do quite well in the European competitions as well. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how they do it because don't forget the growth decree no longer exists. So it'll be interesting summer as well for Italian clubs as well.
Yeah, I can't wait. I really like the idea of De Zerbi taking over that Milan team. I like that squad and him. I think maybe you need to look at his ball playing centre backs possibly because I don't know if Thiaw and Tomori are particularly strong on the ball or strong enough for the football that he likes to play. But there's a lot of quality in that squad where I think De Zerbi could really get the most out of it. His name is getting linked to every job in Italy at the moment. It is incredible.
I can imagine,
whoever takes over, whoever he takes over, they're going to have to put up with someone who clearly doesn't mind speaking his mind. And I think that kind of rules De Laurentiis and Napoli out straight away. But let's leave Torino and Milan there, I suppose. And let's go for another kind of Premier League Serie A love-in and talk about Claudio Ranieri, Serie A GOAT, performing miracles, keeping an island alive and in Serie A as they win 2-0. Thus relegating Sassuolo. We'll get onto them. But let's keep with the cheery story. Adam, unbelievable achievement. Honestly, I keep looking at Bari fighting relegation in Serie B and be like, what the hell could have been? But it's incredible what Claudio has done there, right?
It's a beautiful story when you consider the scheme of things and the events that happens, especially with Calgary at the beginning of the season. No one's favourite to stay up. They were obviously the winners of the playoffs in Serie B. And Claudio Ranieri turned their season in that respect because he was brought in halfway through the season where they were underperforming, got them up through the playoffs. And, I didn't fancy them. I had them down to go down myself. But the way he's managed to transform their season, getting important victories away from home was inevitably the most important part of their season. And they just look like they're a team now that are more solidified as a group of players, even in the kind of abyss of, the events that sometimes where they're back or behind in games, they seemingly seem to have enough effort and determination and grit, more importantly, to bring themselves back into games. And, you've got old war horses like Gianluca Lapadula, Pavarotti as well. And like up top, these are players that shouldn't really be playing maybe necessarily in Serie A because, maybe the pace doesn't really, come to their game naturally, but, they've got the kind of nous about them. And I think you saw it in the performance yesterday, or was it Sunday, even against Sassuolo. And And, you know, just the way he's managed to transform it, I think there was important signatures that he got in the January transfer window with Yerry Mina, for example, Gianluca Gaetano as well. But you can see even the players that came on, like Matteo Pratt, who came on and scored the first goal for Calgary yesterday. That's a young player that's come into that squad as well. So it's a bright future for Calgary. I just worry about what they do after Ranieri. It'll be interesting to see whether he decides to stay another season or not. Because obviously, inevitably, he was kind of linked with moving on during the part of the
Napoli?
season. You know?
No, I don't know.
But yeah, in all seriousness, I do wonder what would happen, because they've never been a team that's really been able to push on. They've always been a team that's always been struggling in the lower echelons of Serie A. So it'll be an interesting summer. If they can keep hold of Ranieri and let him build a team, then you never know. He might build the foundations for someone to come in, and maybe he just needs some young protege to be by his side to then take over this squad. I think that'd be a natural kind of succession plan for them. Whether they do that is another thing, because inevitably Calgary have these massive grand schemes of thinking. You know, they were supposed to build like a 60,000 capacity stadium, weren't they, at one point, and that's never happened. So
never believe a story in Italy about a new stadium. It just never fucking happens. Just like move on to the next story. But Ben, it's something I found interesting. It says a lot about Ranieri, but what he's done really well is target the games against the teams around him. So like, the only team around them that they've really lost to is Frosinone, but they like drew with Empoli. They've beaten, drew with Udinese, of course. They've beaten Empoli since. They've beaten Salernitana. They drew with Verona. They've kind of the teams around them. He's really good at targeting games and just like knowing what is achievable and focusing on that, right?
Yeah, it's kind of similar to what he did at Leicester in that season before they won the title, and that kind of run in towards the end of the season. They battered QPR, I think, on the final day, who were already down, but they beat Newcastle in that run where they need to stay up. They beat Burnley in that run. They beat Swansea. They beat West Brom. They beat West Ham. They beat a lot of teams that were kind of in and around that dogfight. So it's kind of it's similar to kind of what he's done throughout his career, and targeting those games where you know that you're going to get the points, because again, there's such a kind of a gulf between the top and the bottom in Serie A, especially when you're going up against Inter or Milan or Bologna. It's like there is such a gulf. So to win the games you can win, focus on what you can control, and that's how you're going to stay up. You kind of, as a fan, you kind of know you accept you're sort of going to get beat against those teams. But if you can beat the teams around you, that's what's going to keep you up. And I think we've kind of seen it in the Prem this year, where a lot of those games with the teams around each other at the bottom have been very, very, very cagey, and there's been not a lot of wins that have kind of gone either way, because I think teams are kind of scared about losing those ones because they know the importance. But the fact that Cagliari under Ranieri have done that and kind of targeted those games, I think is kind of testament to his kind of survival strategy, really, because it's been so important. That's what's got them over the line.
No, I absolutely love it. And the speech he made at halftime for the Cagliari players was when Gigi Riva, an absolute legend, the captain to lift the one Scudetto with Cagliari, called him himself and said to him, "Remember, you've not just got a team that you're carrying; it's an island that is behind you." And he used that at halftime to spur the players on. He really, really knows how to just get an atmosphere around a club, and the players and the fans and everything is so connected. And it kind of did it surprise me? I don't know. It always surprises me a little bit, even though I know how much of a legend he is, but just how revered he is in Italy and in this country as like a football manager. He is just like, everyone loves him. Everyone like just has so much time for him. And I've not seen anyone be like kind of not a single shitty comment about Cagliari staying up. It's just been like, yes, Claudio, like just keep doing this. Like we absolutely love it. So fantastic to see. But Adam, as they secure their survival, Sassuolo are finally sent down in the least surprising turn of events. The most underachieving squad this year in Serie A. I think they are the ones that are disappointed the most. When you look at the quality that is on that field, in theory, they have been absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, I think, this season was always going to be a test for Dionisi at the beginning of this campaign, and they never seemed to build on the elements that they needed to improve on. So, for example, they've never been really, I think there's been an over-reliance on Domenico Berardi, for example, but also defensively, they've been so poor. I mean, when you're playing a 37-year-old goalkeeper then you need to ensure that maybe defensively they're a bit more agile and a bit more nous about them. And certainly in certain games they've managed to pull it off, but for the majority of this campaign, they've really struggled. And, when you look and reflect back on the victories, they've only been like 1 goal margins. They've not been, excessively more than that. So I think that's the element. I think certain players during the campaign have disappointed. Armand Loriente of late has started to play well, but during the campaign, he's been disappointing. Forsveldt, for example, is another player that I had high hopes, but he's gone quiet as well. When Josh Doig made that move from Hellas Verona to Sassuolo, I was very surprised. Again, probably an element of he'll move on in the summer. But yeah, I mean, Kumbula as well, who was brought in from Roma as well. I think there was higher hopes for what he would deliver on the pitch as well. He's been very disappointing. And yeah, I just think there's been a lot of errors here. It's not just like in terms of the managerial decisions, it's also been behind the scenes, how they've reinvested the money from the likes of Fratese, for example, Scamacca, etc. It's just a weird kind of element to Sassuolo's campaign. And, it's been a decade of Sassuolo being in Serie A where they've been the surprising element in the league. But now this season, it's really come to fruition where they've been caught out. And unfortunately, you'll probably see an exodus of those players to other Serie A clubs in the summer. So it'll be an interesting summer for them. If they can retain half of them, then there stands a chance of them coming back up. But I can't see the likes of Pinamonti staying or sticking around, to be honest. I think they'll be on too high a wage for them to be considered for Serie B. So interesting summer, but yeah, inevitably, I think the problem was always been about they're a franchise club, essentially, in the middle of nowhere where they don't have a lot of fans in general. So, for the majority of the bigger games, it's a bit like Celtic and Rangers going to one of the Scottish teams, they take up 3 parts of the stadium. So yeah, it's always been a difficulty for Sassuolo. And yeah, I think this day was coming, wasn't it, Rory?
Yeah, it's been in the post for a while. The managerial change didn't really make a difference. There seemed to be a lack of discipline throughout the team throughout the season. It's kind of summed up by Enrique getting sent off in the 93rd minute for just not shutting up. Like, it felt like they've thrown in their hand a while ago. And I think, yeah, as you said, there's a lot of players there that will be picked off, and they've just not put themselves in a particularly good light, I think. And I've said it before, the only player that I could look at and be like, okay, you've put in some shifts really was Torstved. Was like he scored a few goals in games where they were kind of trying to keep in it and at hard times and stuff. I think he's the only player that I'd be looking at and going, okay, we take a risk on this guy. He's clearly Serie A quality. Obviously, Berardi is the interesting one because of the massive injury that he's just sustained. He's also not as young as you would like him to be. Like, he's not going to play Serie B, clearly, but I feel like that big move might have gone past him now. Like, Ben, do you still see a team like Milan? Like, he was always perpetually linked with Milan. The guy's quality, but do you feel like it's just a bit late now? An ACL injury as well?
Yeah, I think it's probably too late. Like, he's been linked with basically every single club. He's one of those ones as well where you felt like if he hadn't made that move up, I think it really could have clicked. I think injuries just held him back a little bit, and it's just, unfortunately, I think that's kind of the level maybe where he's at now, which feels harsh, but yeah, it's a shame kind of the trajectory that his career has been on with the injuries and stuff. Yeah. But I think it's probably a little bit too late now, isn't it?
Yeah. I would love to see, because I think there might be about 10 million knocked off his price tag now. I think I would love to see him kind of join a Fiorentina, a team like that, someone that's like pushing for Europe, but not one of like the title challengers. Because like I said, I think it's a little bit late, but get him at a team like Fiorentina, get him at a team like Torino. I'm going to keep pushing him. Maybe it would be really nice to see him get a bit of European football, because Sassuolo, they made Europe once, right? They got there once, did they?
They did. It was under De Zerbi as well.
Yes, of course it was. Yeah. So we got there once. It'd be good to see him back. But yeah, Sassuolo, after 11 years, like, it's an incredible achievement that they were in the Serie A for that long, really. Because as you said, Adam, it's a village team in like the middle of nowhere where, they had real no right to be there, I suppose. But let's look at the relegation picture in general. This leaves us with one match day left to go, and it is all still very, very tight. We have Empoli in 18th on 33 points, Udinese on 34 points in 17th, Frosinone on 35 points in 16th, and that's it. We have three teams that are able to still get relegated. Empoli and Udinese left it late this week. Absolute thriller, two very late penalties. Niang has been absolutely key since he came in for Empoli, getting another goal. And then Samardzic with a very beautifully calm high corner penalty in like the 110th minute or whatever it was. It felt like it was a very, very, very long time, that goal. But kind of not of any use to either team, really. Both teams needed to win that, right?
Yeah, definitely. It felt like Empoli were going to nick all 3 points because at that point in the game, Udinese probably had the better chances to take all 3 themselves. However, they just couldn't get the shots on target. And then when they conceded that penalty, I think the crowd kind of felt, oh shit, this is the moment where it might be going down. But yeah, luckily they kind of got away with it from a corner routine whereby one of the players was adjudged to have pulled back. I think it was their Balje. I think it was the player that went down for Udinese. And yeah, that gives them a lifeline. You know, I never saw, I suppose, the performances that I thought would happen under Cannavaro, but they have happened. You know, I think he's instilled a lot more confidence compared to Trophy beforehand. And it'll be interesting because now, like you say, there's 3 teams going for it. I predicted in my predictor so many weeks ago, Rory, that the bottom 3 would be Salenitana, Sassuolo, and Udinese. I did say it would go down to the last day of the season as well. Yeah. So I don't want to tempt fate, but I think they've got the easier of the games, if I remember, out of the 2, because they've got to go away to Roma. So this means it's going to be fascinating to see, if I remember rightly, Udinese, do they play? They've got Frosinone, which makes it even tougher. I'm just looking at goal difference. That might play a part as well. If
it depends what their head-to-head is, doesn't it? I need to think about what their head-to-head is because that comes in first. But yeah, it's going to be incredibly tight. Verona have beaten Salernitana tonight, which means they are safe. They're safe. So they keep themselves in the league. But there was a disallowed goal in this game, Adam, and I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on it. It was an absolute banger of a hit, but it was disallowed for an elbow. I don't know if I just didn't have my lenses in or not, but I didn't really see much of a foul. Did you see it?
I'm trying to think now. I can't remember the goal itself either.
I would have to take a second look because I think it was one of those goals. We were talking about it the other week that it was so good that like no fouls or offside should count. It should just be allowed. Like he just absolutely battered it. But I thought it was a bit soft. I thought there was like an elbow. The guy went down a bit easy, but I'd have to have another look. But of course, Udinese draw again. Just to keep on top of their counter for draws, that is now their 19th draw of the season. Just beyond belief. I've been trying to find the record in Serie A for the most draws. I still haven't found it. I think Udinese must be. They must
be setting it now.
They must have it because 19 is a ludicrous number. And elsewhere in the relegation battle, as I said, Verona beat Salernitana, and Frosinone. I need to find their score. They lost
1-0 against Monza.
1-0 against Monza. Incredible
massive result.
Away at Monza as well. Obviously, Monza a bit of a definition on the bench, but who scored? Of course, it was Wally Khedira. Adam, I am collecting these receipts, honestly. The guy's just coming up massive.
Yeah, and again, it was kind of a classic Khedira goal, wasn't it? Because it was cross into the box and he kind of headers it from the back post. But yeah, that's the kind of performances we've needed from him of late, especially when you think about Mateus Sule. He hasn't been his normal self that he showed for the majority of the season. It's been a fascinating season again for Eusebio Di Francesco. If he manages to keep this team up, given the circumstances of how they started off this campaign, you know, if you remember, Fabio Grosso led them into this position, into Serie A, and then gets sacked and replaced by Eusebio Di Francesco. And, you know, at the beginning, I was very skeptical, but they played some really good football. And then they eventually got dragged into it due to inexperience. And I think a few injuries set in as well. So, yeah, I dread to think what will happen last day of the season. I think it's going to be all draws, isn't it, again?
Udinese are definitely drawing. We know that. You've got to make it 20. At least make it a round number, guys, please. Like, it just freaks me out otherwise. It's got to be a nice round number. But just for an update, Wally Khedira now on 7 goals and 1 assist in Serie A this year. That is honestly...
That's impressive.
That's not bad. That's not bad, considering he usually comes off the bench. That's pretty good. But guys, as we've been talking, all hell has broken loose as Bologna were 3-0 up. but Juve have managed to drag it back to 3-3. Calafiori getting 2 goals against his what seems like future club, as that move seems to edge closer and closer. But Chiesa, Milik, and Yildiz, Yildiz scoring within 2 minutes of each other, or within a minute of each other to make it 3-3. Obviously, the players are just petrified about having to go into a changing room with Montero waiting for him 3-0 down. Like, Ben, would you want to walk into that room? He's like the scariest man alive.
Absolutely not. No, especially not off the back of that. No chance.
Absolutely terrifying. But this, of course, we've not really had a chance to talk about it, I think. Adam, Allegri kind of unceremoniously sacked. I've saved it as a reaction meme, but his Fiat 500 speeding out of the training camp and down the road is just absolute poetry. I'm a bit surprised they didn't just hang on. Like, were they literally waiting for the second there was an excuse to sack him? Like, it's incredible.
I think they've literally taken this misconduct kind of charges really seriously for once. And, it's strange. If you think about the context, look, they won midweek against Atalanta in the Coppa Italia. They win respectively quite well because Atalanta didn't turn up on the match. But Allegri gets himself so wound up to the point that he's taking off his clothes on the sideline doing another Phil Monty. And then he's threatening the director, I think it was, of Tutte Sports, is it?
Yeah.
And saying, I'll take off your ears, like threatening him with his life, essentially.
I'll take off your clothes.
Not just your clothes, literally. But it's just uncharacteristic. Like almost Allegri kind of accepts it. If I'm going to go with all hell half fury, and I'm going to make a scene of it to make sure people know. And it was all around the fact that Allegri felt that news outlet wasn't writing respectable things about him, which, surprise, surprise, come on, man. What do you expect given the football you've kind of delivered this season? But it was just how he went about it. And, I don't think Juventus really could do anything else really in the circumstances, because otherwise it would have been brought against him. But I think they kind of ducked out of it. But this was the perfect opportunity. If you think in the grand scheme of things, look, they weren't prepared to pay off his whole contract that he kind of alluded to, that he wasn't going to leave for €1 less. So this gave them opportunity to kind of say, right, because of these misconduct charges, we're going to pay you less severance pay, and you can leave with your head held high. You're still respected as as a modern coach that has delivered so much for the club. It was 5 Scudettos, 5 Coppa Italias, and 2 Super Coppa Italias across those 2 spells at Juventus, which has to be applauded. I know there's some of them suspects because they didn't really have any competition, let's put it that way. Yeah. But ultimately, it's just been one of those kind of events that unfortunately Juventus's previous boards have overspent, overexpected, and that's kind of come to force now. And Juventus are having to re-stabilize the ship. They're going to have to ship off a few players. Obviously, Adrian Rabiot is linked with Man United, so that's another one off the books now. It's that time. Thomas Muller will be next for Man United, don't you worry. And then if you look elsewhere, Arkadiusz Milik is linked with leaving, Wojciech Szczesny. So that shows you there's a lot of high earners on the books. There's going to be a huge change in philosophy. I think there's going to be reliance on the next gen, which is why I think they're trying to put all their eggs into one basket with Thiago Motta. Yeah. But he hasn't committed. He hasn't said he's going. So this leaves a huge dilemma if say Thiago Motta says, I'm staying at Bologna, because he said, after this game today, he's going to announce what he's going to do with his future. I
hope he did it the second the final whistle went. He just walked into the
saying at Bologna. Signs his new contract there and then, right?
Yeah. I'm not fucking leaving.
Mic drop.
I hope so. I need to go and see if that's happened. No, but yeah, I don't know. The Juve have hardly been sticklers for the rules in the past. If you know what I mean, I don't think they're I think they've just... he's put as much as the football's been terrible. They've underperformed to an extent. There's been a lot of shit around there. Not all of it is his fault. He the entire board walked out on the club last year because they were all fucked legally. He's put up with a lot of shit at that club. And I think for them to kind of just be I could understand why he was speeding off down the motorway being fuck you guys. I think he's had to put up with a lot of shit as well. And I don't like to stick up for him, but it was an unholy breakdown on the sideline. That was spectacular. That was like Lawrence Fox-esque level of breakdown that he had on the sideline there. Really, really did enjoy that. But as you said, it'll be interesting to see who they get next. If it's not Thiago Motta, Ben, Roberto De Zerbi, he seems like the next one, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea where De Zerbi is going to end up. I think it could be Milan, but I mean, if you want to go bold, why not? It's an exciting project. They've got some really good players there. I don't know. I still can't see. I can't see where De Zerbi ends up. I still think it'll be Milan. Yeah.
It will be interesting to see. Juve, that does keep them, I think, just below Bologna. They're now they're level on points. So Bologna's head-to-head keeps them ahead of Juve. Absolutely massive season for Bologna, just incredible achievement. And finally, Atalanta in the Champions League, celebrating. Everybody's happy. Gasperini jumping up and down in the changing rooms. All they need is a trophy to crown this thing, right? The Coppa Italia, the final didn't go to plan, right? Scamacca was out. They missed him massively. Yeah. They just never really got going. Juve managed the game well, but you could see they're missing a key part of this team. And he's been in fantastic form since Christmas, really, now, Scamacca. But they are coming up against the unstoppable force of Bayer Leverkusen, who have just claimed themselves as the first ever unbeaten Bundesliga team. Adam, I'll go to you, Ben, afterwards. But Adam, do you think Atalanta can get this crowning moment? I really want Gasperini to get this.
Yeah, of course they can. I think if they want to cap off this season and show what they've achieved this season, they have to follow it up. And look, Bayer Leverkusen, they've had so much luck this season. It's been well documented about these late goals. They weren't particularly great in that semi-final tie against Roma. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of learnings that Gasperini will learn from this. And I think Gasperini has the edge over De Rossi in the sense that he has that maturity. He knows how to play these occasions as well. And it's a one-off game as well. That's the other element. And I think on the day, they can play really well. I think he just needs to use, like you say, his players really well. It's a shame about De Royne.
I was just about to say, De Royne being out is horrible.
Being out is heartbreaking because he is the staple of that squad. But if anything, that might be the impetus that the players need. They need something to aim at and say, we want to do it for him. And if there's anyone that deserves it more than anyone in that squad, it is him. So fingers crossed, they've got a really good defensive setup. I think they will do quite well against Leverkusen. It'll just be a question of that midfield battle and whether De Ketelaere can just do something different on this day. I mean, look, options off the bench as well. Bilal Touré is very, attacking minded, very aggressive. And then you got Lookman as well. Ademola Lookman on his day can turn a game as well. So, whilst we are saying De Ketelaere and Scamacca are going to be the prime men, I suspect they'll be the starting choices up front. Look, they've got options off the bench, and I think they'll cause Leverkusen something to think about. So let's see if they've got a little bit of a hangover in Germany, bring it into this game, and potentially Gasperini's men can do it.
Well, De Ketelaere came out this week after the Atalanta game and said, I'm happy in Bergamo. I want to stay here. My football's getting better. Please just leave me here. I don't want to go back. Don't send me back there. And I don't blame him whatsoever. Gasperini has shown up Pioli pretty hard in how quickly he's got a tune out of De Ketelaere and how much he's just transformed him. Ben, he's having an incredible season. Do you have hopes for Atalanta? I just feel like Leverkusen are inevitable at this moment, but do you have hopes for Atalanta?
I think you have to, considering what they've done to get to this point. Mm-hmm. But I just think, like you said, Leverkusen. Someone tweeted the other day, what would happen if Leverkusen and Real Madrid played each other? I think the world would just combust. It's just like both the two most inevitable teams in Europe. I think Leverkusen will just get over the line, but I think Atalanta will give a good account of themselves, and I think it'll be a close game. I think it's going to rely on that kind of individual quality of players like De Ketelaere as well. But I think Leverkusen will just do it. I think they will just have too much. But again, that's not for how impressive they've been in the league, Atalanta as well, and in this competition. That you can't kind of consider that a failure. They've been so exciting to watch in this competition and Serie A as well. So yeah, I think they'll just miss out, unfortunately.
Well, we hope for you. Forza Ladeo, we are hoping for Atalanta. We're praying for Atalanta because I want Gasperini to have that crowning moment, something that shows everything, the incredible things he's achieving at that club. And I think it would be an amazing crowning moment. I'm looking forward to this game more than the Champions League final. Honestly, I think this game's going to be absolutely fantastic. Leverkusen Fiorentina is going to be Leverkusen Atalanta, close, is going to be a tasty one. Fiorentina is the other one as they take on Olympiacos. That's this week as well, right?
Yes.
I can't keep up with all this. Adam, Fiorentina, this is their moment. Italiano, probably going to Napoli, probably going somewhere. This is his fourth final. He's got them to third, fourth final. Yet to win one. So this is it now. You've got to step up and do it, eh?
I still think Olympiacos will win this one.
I think they're going to do it as well. Yeah.
I looked at the way they've played, actually. Olympiacos are one of those teams that I think have flattered to deceive. I think they're better than they actually are. Podence in their squad as well, who we remember from Wolves days. They've got a few tasty players on their books as well. So generally, I just think the way Fiorentina are so inconsistent, but having said that, they are starting to get some consistency in the league. So maybe that will help them out. However, I don't like the way how inconsistent Italiano doesn't seem to read the game very well as well when things aren't going the way he wants them to as well. So I got this nasty feeling. Sorry to Andrea. He's had a lot of pain this season, but unfortunately, it's just not going to happen, I'm afraid. I think Olympiacos will win this one.
Yeah, well, they've got their manager as the Sevilla. He won 3 Europa Leagues for Sevilla, right? Is it Mendilibar? He's in charge of Olympiacos. So I kind of get the feeling, Ben, Olympiacos, another Greek upset in a cup.
Yeah, I think they'll do it. I do. I was really impressed with them against Villa, especially at Villa Park. And I know it's easy to say that because of the result, but who's the striker again? Scored a couple of goals.
Gaddafi.
Yeah, Moroccan, isn't it?
Yeah. He was super impressive. I think Olympiacos will just get over the line. I do.
Yeah. Well, if they do, and if he scores, I expect to see him at Everton next year. I think some kind of lower mid-table Premier League team's going to come in and buy him, and it'll be like what's his name? That Turkish bloke, the striker that Everton had. He was terrible. What was his name? Tosun. There we go. It'll be like that kind of vibe. Cenk Tosun. There's something to look forward to. Well, guys, I think we've covered everything. We're going to be back with a special episode on Thursday or Friday. We'll decide when we're going to release it. Probably Friday. Keep to the routine, eh? And it will be all things Premier League, a review of the season with a very special guest looking back at what has been an insane and frankly stupid Premier League season with so many ridiculous moments. We'll be looking back at it and basking. So we hope to see you on Friday. Ben, it was good to see you, man. It feels like it's been a while. When our viewers and listeners want to find you, where can they find you online?
No, it's been good to be back, and I hope to be back for the for stuff around the Euros as well. It's just been so busy the last couple of months. But you can find me on TikTok, Ben Bowman, and then Twitter as well, and then the Daring and Doing Spurs podcast as well. Going to be a lot of stuff over the summer on there. We've got a big game to look forward to against Newcastle on Wednesday in Melbourne. So there'll be
it's a big one.
I just want it to be over. But yeah, might do like a watch along or something for that. 10:45 in the morning. Well, I just want. Why can't it be the Euros already? Well, I suppose we've got the Champions League final next weekend as well, and the 2 Europa League and Conference League finals this week. But no, good to be back. It was good to be back.
I'm just getting massive vibes of the Mitchell and Webb thing, like the football, it never stops. It will never end.
All of the time.
I appreciated the Spurs players getting onto the plane, and I think it was Vicario who with like faux fucking
let's go.
Enthusiasm. Let's go. I was like, mate, you must be so tired.
Yeah.
Like
Van der Ven was just like, what am I doing here?
Why are we doing this again? But yeah, Adam, mate, it's been a while again. I've really enjoyed it. So guys, anything to say before I let people enjoy what's left of their Monday evenings?
Enjoy your football, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys. Hit the like and subscribe button down here. You can find us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram and TikTok at Anglo-Italian Pod. Join us every Monday at 8:30. We will be back, and there will be lots of stuff for the Euros. We just need to plan it and think about it, but it will be there. We will see you next time. Ciao. A dopo.
Ciao, ciao.